In the 1980s, if a Hollywood blockbuster made money, Italy was ready to film a louder, cheaper, and more explosive version of it by next Tuesday. This was the golden age of the Italian mockbuster, a decade of cinematic recycling where the jungles of the Philippines doubled for Vietnam and local bodybuilders became the next cyborg icons. Tonight, we dive into 10 Italian action knockoffs that define the era of shameless imitation. These aren't just copies, they are high-octane fever dreams that often trade narrative logic for non-stop pyrotechnics and incredible practical effects. From the sweat-soaked trenches of the jungle to the neon-lit ruins of a post-apocalyptic future, these films represent an industry that thrived on pure, unadulterated grit. They took the blueprints of Rambo, Predator, and the Terminator and added a chaotic European flair that made them cult legends in their own right. Lock and load, these are 10 essential deep dives into the world of Italian action knockoffs.
Strike Commando, 1987. Director Bruno Mattei fires on absolutely all cylinders here to deliver the ultimate hyper-exaggerated parody clone of Rambo, First Blood Part 2. Mattei completely abandons narrative restraint, pacing the film like a live-action cartoon, filled with endless automatic gunfire, over-the-top dialogue, and massive pyrotechnic stunts. The visual style is beautifully frantic and chaotic, keeping the viewer entirely overwhelmed by a non-stop barrage of practical squibs, blowing up bamboo huts, and dizzying handheld tracking shots through the thick brush. The pure, unhinged energy of the project is driven entirely by Reb Brown, who delivers his definitive career performance here, screaming at the top of his lungs while firing a massive machine gun with endless ammunition. He plays Sergeant Michael Ransom, an unstoppable American Special Forces operative who is left behind enemy lines and taken in by a peaceful village. When a sadistic, Soviet-backed military force brutally slaughters the community, Ransom transforms himself into a one-man army, launching an explosive campaign of total vengeance. As the cartoonishly evil Soviet officer who serves as Ransom's ultimate rival, setting up a series of hilariously intense confrontations. It stands as an absolute masterpiece of high-energy trash cinema, a proudly ridiculous, endlessly entertaining artifact that represents the absolute peak of Italian action excess. For viewers looking for an unfiltered dose of late VHS-era adrenaline where logic takes a back seat to explosions, this remains the undisputed king. Blastfighter, 1984. An ex-cop named Jake returns to his remote, peaceful hometown in the Appalachian Mountains after serving a lengthy prison sentence for a retaliatory killing. Hoping to live a quiet life of isolation, he is immediately targeted and harassed by a corrupt group of local hunters who control the regional black market trade. When the gang goes too far and murders his loved ones, Jake unearths a high-tech, multi-barreled prototype shotgun to wage an all-out guerrilla war against his tormentors. Director Lamberto Bava masterfully pivots from his traditional horror roots to deliver a relentless, beautifully paced rural revenge thriller inspired by First Blood. Bava utilizes the dense, foggy forest environments to build an intense atmosphere of claustrophobic stalking and sudden explosive movement. The editing style shifts smoothly from a slow-burn domestic drama into a blistering, chaotic showcase of pure cinematic firepower. Michael Sopkiw anchors the narrative with a cold, brooding intensity that makes his transformation into an unstoppable Avenger incredibly satisfying. Legendary genre icon George Eastman turns in a menacing, highly memorable performance as the primary antagonist leading the hunt. Packed with massive stunts and spectacular practical car crashes, the film stands as a highly sought-after holy grail for vintage VHS collectors. 1990, The Bronx Warriors, 1982. A gritty, leather-clad fusion of the Warriors and Mad Max, this high-octane Italian exploitation milestone turns the crumbling ruins of New York into a hyper-stylized neon battleground. Director Enzo G. Castellari maximizes his production value by shooting directly on location in the actual, decaying streets of the late 70s and early 80s Bronx, wrapping the film in a raw, authentic texture that studio sets could never replicate. The camera thrives on kinetic, low-angle tracking shots that follow rumbling motorcycle gangs and sudden explosive street brawls, all set to a pulsing, funk-infused rock score that keeps the momentum dialed to 10. The narrative kicks into gear when Anne, the wealthy heiress to the massive Manhattan Corporation weapon empire, flees her sterile life and crosses the bridge into the lawless, gang-ruled territory of the Bronx. She is quickly taken under the protection of Trash, the fiercely charismatic motorcycle-riding leader of a local gang called the Riders. When her corporate handlers dispatch a sadistic, elite mercenary squad to retrieve her by any means necessary, Trash is forced to unite a bizarre gallery of rival street factions to wage an all-out guerrilla war for survival. Mark Gregory anchors the film with a striking, stoic physical presence as Trash, instantly creating an iconic visual silhouette of the 1980s home video boom. Cult cinema legend Fred Williamson steals every single scene he touches as the flamboyant, golf club-wielding leader of a rival gang called the Tigers, adding elite B-movie charisma to the chaotic ensemble. Relying entirely on practical stunts, spectacular explosions, and theatrical costumes, it stands as a legendary crowning achievement of Italian post-apocalyptic cinema that perfectly captures the unhinged energy of the drive-in era. The Last Hunter, 1980. An American soldier named Captain Harry Morris is sent on a treacherous, near-suicidal rescue mission deep into the heart of the Vietnamese jungle to shut down a rogue anti-war radio transmitter. Along the way, he navigates a landscape filled with unpredictable guerrilla forces, hidden traps, and shifting psychological alliances. As his squad members are systematically eliminated by the environment, Morris must steel his resolve to complete the objective alone. Director Antonio Margheriti crafts a gritty, high-octane combat feature that capitalized heavily on the mainstream success of big-budget Hollywood classics like Apocalypse Now. Utilizing real jungle locations and his trademark intricate miniature effects, Margheriti infuses the landscape with constant explosions and immense physical danger. The camera work alternates between claustrophobic jungle tracking shots and sweeping panoramic views of fiery helicopter dogfights. David Warbeck leads the production with a fierce, intensely physical performance that grounds the absurd action in real-world grit. Tisa Farrow adds an excellent layer of emotional vulnerability as a desperate photojournalist caught in the crossfire. The film is heavily celebrated by physical media collectors for its spectacular, pyrotechnic-heavy practical effects and its dark, cynical look at war. It remains a definitive milestone of the golden era of Euro-cult action cinema. Robowar, 1988. Action veteran Reb Brown commands the frame with his legendary high-energy screen presence in this jungle sci-fi clone, literally screaming his way through waves of pyrotechnic explosions as a fiercely loyal squad leader. He heads an elite military commando team deployed into a thick tropical swamp on a top-secret recovery mission, only to realize they have stepped directly into a lethal tactical trap. Instead of a standard guerrilla enemy, the squad is systematically hunted by a rogue, high-tech military prototype Cyborg equipped with advanced cloaking technology and heavy thermal weaponry, built exclusively for total biological eradication. Exploitation auteur Bruno Mattei delivers a delightfully shameless, hyperkinetic tribute to Predator that completely skips the slow buildup and goes straight for non-stop automatic gunfire. He keeps the camera moving frantically through the thick brush, relying heavily on a distinct pixelated robot vision, point-of-view camera filter to keep the audience locked inside the killer's perspective. It is a gloriously unpolished visual style that relies entirely on raw momentum, throwing one chaotic jungle ambush after another at the viewer without a single moment of downtime. Backed by a pulsing, hypnotic electronic synthesizer score that perfectly dates the project to the twilight of the 1980s, the film is pure, unfiltered B-movie bliss. The production features a classic, hands-on indie texture, utilizing practical squib work and low-budget ingenuity to keep the body count rising. For cult cinema collectors looking for an incredibly loud, fast-moving artifact that wears its Hollywood plagiarism proudly on its sleeve, this remains a treasured staple of retro action history. Hands of Steel, 1986. A powerful cyborg assassin named Paco Kerouac experiences a sudden, unexpected moral awakening, right at the moment he is ordered to execute an influential environmental leader. Turning against his corrupt corporate creators, Paco flees to a remote desert truck stop to lie low, befriending the local workers and trying to reclaim his lost humanity. However, his masters quickly dispatch an elite army of high-tech mercenary killers and rival cyborgs to eliminate him in a massive, destructive showdown. Director Sergio Martino returns to the sci-fi arena to deliver an action-packed, beautifully photographed thriller that serves as a spiritual mashup of The Terminator and Over the Top. Martino makes spectacular use of sweeping, sun-drenched Arizona desert vistas, contrasting the natural beauty against the cold, mechanical violence of the plot. The editing shines during the film's numerous, tightly choreographed martial arts brawls and intense arm wrestling sequences. Daniel Green gives a wonderfully stoic, physically imposing performance as the conflicted cyborg struggle to comprehend his own synthetic nature. Bringing an elite level of Hollywood gravitas to the indie production is the iconic John Saxon, who turns in a phenomenal performance as the ruthless corporate villain orchestrating the manhunt alongside genre legend George Eastman, who adds immense cult screen presence as a rival truck stop powerhouse. For retro action fans, it remains a beautifully shot, highly prioritized staple of late-era Italian genre cinema. Alien from the Deep, 1989. Instead of a typical military squad or a team of hardened mercenaries, this creature feature kicks off with two dedicated environmental activists who infiltrate a secure, remote tropical island facility. Their eco-crusade turns into an absolute nightmare when they document a sinister corporation illegally dumping glowing, highly radioactive waste directly into an active volcano, an act that awakens a colossal, clawed, extraterrestrial monster buried deep within the earth. Suddenly, the activists are caught in a double-sided trap between a ruthless corporate cleanup crew trying to silence them and a giant alien bent on destroying the entire industrial complex. Cult director Antonio Margheriti brings his legendary mastery of miniature models to the forefront, creating spectacularly detailed factory sets just to systematically crush them under the monster's weight. He wraps the entire production in heavy shadow play and deep red lighting, which brilliantly heightens the sense of panic while masking the shoestring nature of the creature effects. The camera work is constantly looking upward, emphasizing the sheer scale of the destruction and the isolation of the island setting. Charles Napier brings his signature, gruff Hollywood authority to the screen as the ruthless corporate security chief who treats the alien as a mere public relations problem. The physical effects are incredibly fun, highlighted by a massive, tangibly built alien claw that the actors genuinely have to wrestle with on set. It stands as a prime example of late-era Italian genre filmmaking, combining a well-intentioned ecological message with big-scale, low-budget disaster action. 2019. After the fall of New York, 1983, the post-apocalyptic Wasteland subgenre was incredibly crowded in the early 1980s, but this highly imaginative, gorgeously gritty Italian epic easily stands out as a definitive crowning achievement of the boom. Director Sergio Martino maximizes his visual production value by blending real, decaying urban locations with remarkably detailed miniature cityscapes and vibrant matte paintings. The editing pace is kept incredibly brisk, throwing a constant, unpredictable parade of bizarre local factions, low-budget vehicular combat sequences, and classic sci-fi tropes directly at the screen. The narrative drops us right into a nuclear-ravaged future where a cynical, rugged wasteland racer named Parsifal is recruited by a desperate resistance group for an impossible task. His mission is to covertly infiltrate the heavily fortified, gang-ruled ruins of Manhattan to rescue the last fertile woman left alive on Earth. Michael Sopkiw gives a definitive, charismatic performance as the leather-clad anti-hero lead, matching the tough guy energy required for the genre perfectly, while George Eastman adds immense cult screen presence as a rival warrior. What truly secures the film's status among vintage physical media collectors is its incredible atmospheric electronic score and its sheer unbridled ambition. The camera work stays low and fast, navigating a deadly maze of mutant factions and killer cyborgs to give the entire production a sense of grand scale on a shoestring budget. It stands as a masterclass in independent world-building, a film that treats its derivative Escape from New York and Mad Max roots with absolute seriousness and boundless energy. Cobra Mission, 1986. 10 years after the official end of the Vietnam War, a group of deeply dissatisfied, traumatized American veterans realizes they cannot fully reintegrate into ordinary civilian society. Driven by a lingering sense of duty and unresolved guilt, they decide to return to the dangerous jungles of Southeast Asia on an unauthorized private rescue mission. Their dangerous objective is to locate and liberate a hidden camp of forgotten American prisoners of war who are still being held in captivity by a rogue military force. Director Fabrizio De Angelis focuses heavily on intense practical action choreography, packing the screen with massive firefights, mortar explosions, and daring helicopter insertions. The camera work stays low to the ground, moving quickly alongside the actors through thick swamps and bamboo structures to emphasize the gritty, tactical reality of the mission. By trading standard Hollywood flash for a more grounded survivalist visual tone, De Angelis captures the specific political and cinematic anxieties of the mid-VHS era perfectly. The ensemble cast is led by a commanding, highly professional performance from Oliver Tobias, who captures the rugged world weariness of a veteran who has lost his purpose. In a brilliant bit of genre casting, the legendary Donald Pleasance makes a memorable appearance as an eccentric local priest, providing his signature, unpredictable energy to the film's middle act. It stands as an incredibly solid, fast-paced entry in the nom-exploitation boom that relies entirely on old-school, hands-on independent stunt work. Shocking Dark, 1989. The tight, smoke-choked industrial corridors of a flooded, ruined future Venice serve as the setting for this absolute masterpiece of cinematic theft. A tactical squad of heavily armed megacorporation soldiers is sent underground to investigate a sudden scientific facility blackout, only to find themselves trapped in a subterranean nightmare sector. The team quickly discovers that the dark maze is crawling with lethal, rapidly mutating organic monsters and a cold, highly deceptive synthetic android designed to protect corporate secrets at all costs, forcing them into a desperate, claustrophobic race for survival before a sterilization bomb detonates. Bruno Mattei strikes again here, unleashing a double-barrel plagiarism masterpiece that hilariously lifts its entire plot, character roster, and specific dialogue beats straight from Aliens and the Terminator. To mask the strict limitations of his budget, Mattei's cinematography relies on high contrast, moody blue neon lighting, and heavy shadow play to turn simple concrete industrial sets into an atmospheric sci-fi hellscape. The visual style is wonderfully gritty and unpolished, combining traditional Italian splatter mechanics with late VHS-era cyberpunk tropes. Christopher Ahrens turns in an incredible performance as the calculating corporate operative whose mechanical secret drives the final act. The film has earned an absolute holy grail status within the cult community specifically for its delightfully rubbery creature designs, rapid-fire action sequences, and completely unapologetic narrative theft. For B-movie aficionados who love the unhinged energy of the late 80s video store boom, this is an essential high-octane ride where entertainment value completely trumps creative originality.
That's it for tonight's episode. If you want to help us keep the archive alive and growing, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell. And remember, always be kind and rewind, because every movie is somebody's favorite.